All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Simon, for an interesting paper, intriguing. And Graham Young is our next speaker. Title is Through the Looking Glass, an examination of modern, postmodern, and metamodern advertising from the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Graham is currently a PhD candidate in social inquiry at La Trobe University, Melbourne. His research focuses on the way advertising reflects broader cultural trends. In his work, Graham examines advertising as an art form. His interdisciplinary project covers topics such as economics, climate change, and politics, with a focus on how advertisements from organizations such as banks, NGOs, and political parties reflect an emerging structure of feeling called metamodernism.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So in the interest of keeping this general for our audience, if you're not familiar with the terms, I've decided to kind of introduce you guys slowly to some of the key concepts and tell you about why I'm looking at advertising. Then I'll show you some videos and kind of afterwards kind of just talk you through how I feel like they reflect a certain sensibility, so whether that's modern, postmodern, or metamodern. So starting off, what is metamodernism? It is a particular quality of social experience historically dissect from the particular qualities which gives a sense of a generation or a period. So really you can think about it like a zeitgeist or a spirit of the age. It is, as the Morland and Van Acker kind of discussed, it's problematic in one way, but really where you see this structure of feeling at work is ads. And at least with some of the ads that I look at, it's about what's there, but also what is not there. So with this modern ad, we'll see examples of ideal social orders, and we can also see the people who are excluded based on that. So it does represent a dominant cultural sensibility, the fact that some people are just not represented. So we'll continue. Understanding, this is probably one of those broad sweeping comments that you guys were talking about as well. So understanding metamodernism, it situates itself epistemologically with postmodernism, ontologically between postmodernism and historically beyond postmodernism. Those are all complicated sounding words, but as I kind of walk you through those ads, we'll get a better understanding of them. So, epistemology. So if epistemologically the modern and the postmodern are likened to Hegel's positive idealism, the metamodern aligns itself with Kant's negative idealism, and the second panel discussed this quite well when they were talking about as-if thinking. And basically, we can't forget the lessons that postmodernism has taught us, so we can only act in a way as if a perfect world could exist in order for us to progress to it. Ontology. Ontologically, metamodernism oscillates between the modern and the postmodern. It oscillates between a modern enthusiasm and a postmodern irony, between hope and melancholy, between naivety and knowingness, empathy and apathy, unity and plurality, totality and fragmentation, purity and ambiguity. Indeed, by oscillating to and fro or back and forth, the metamodern negotiates between the modern and the postmodern. And that's a direct quote. So in terms of history, it is just after postmodernism. So Linda Hutchins, in her famous quote, appealed to authors and said the postmodern moment has passed, even if its discursive strategies and its ideological critiques continue to live on, as to those of modernism in our contemporary 21st century. Postmodernism needs a new label of its own, and I conclude, therefore, with a challenge to readers to find it and name it for the 21st century, which I think we are all helping in the process of doing that. In terms of what I look at the global financial crisis, climate geopolitical uncertainties and geopolitical instabilities, which Vermeulen and Van Acker basically attributed to Metamodernism emerging. So going back to some of the things they were talking about, it is about applying flesh to those bones that they outlined and seeing whether it does hold up, seeing whether economic or bank ads do tend to reflect something completely different post those financial crises, or with climate or geopolitical, the rise of populism be an example of how narratives have changed quite a lot. And I'll get on to why I do advertising, but it's just kind of worth noting that advertising is a really great medium because it combines narrative and music and visuals. And so a lot of the stuff that you guys all look at, comes together in a really unique kind of way with advertising. So that's something I appreciate. And I do look at advertising as an art form. Why that is, so according to Marshall, historians and archaeologists will one day discover that the ads of our time are the richest and most faithful daily reflections any society ever made of its whole range of activities, which is a big statement, but it is true in many ways, like I said, both in what they include and what they don't include. So we shall start. I'll give you a rundown of modernism, postmodernism and metamodernism, and show you ads reflecting those. So in terms of modernism, direct quote here by David Harvey, generally perceived as a positivistic, technocentric and rationalistic, universal modernism has been identified with a belief in linear progress, absolute truths, the rational planning of ideal social orders, and the standardization of knowledge and production. And I'll show you an example. Let's see if that.
In this day and age, the secret of success is careful planning. Great buildings are successfully constructed because an architect's plan is faithfully carried out. Aeroplanes annihilating time and distance, and mighty ships that sail the seven seas are carefully built according to a plan. Our ever-expanding industries produce goods for the people, but behind every production line, there is a carefully conceived plan. For without careful planning, industry and our way of life would be paralyzed. As in the affairs of the nation, so in the life of every person. There should be a plan for the future, a plan ensuring individual security and happiness for the ones you love. In your plans for the future, the money you save and bank today will play an important part. Your savings will help your dreams to come true. Perhaps your dream is a modern kitchen. Then save for it. If your plans for the future include a modern car, save all you can now, and there will be happiness ahead. Are you planning a dream home? If you're saving for it today, it can become a reality tomorrow. Holidays, always welcome, are only really enjoyed if you can afford them. And you can if you save now and plan for the future. With the solid backing of a savings account in the Commonwealth Savings Bank, you can obtain all those things you most desire. Plan and save now for your future happiness. Bank your savings with the Commonwealth Savings Bank of Australia, the bank you own.
So I do hope everyone heard that okay. But just kind of going through that definition of what kind of a modern sensibility looks like, they talk about being technocratic or technocentric, and you can really see that in terms of building and architecture and those, fleets and airplanes flying. And that's really about it's human beings' dominance over nature and annihilating time and space. So it's kind of a big ups to the human race. Positivistic in terms of it's logical. Even the ad is black and white, which lends itself to being interpreted as more closely associated with fact and mimesis. You can refer to things as being black and white, so it's obviously kind of true. It's interesting how later ads will even use black and white to kind of signal that this is the true part of the ad versus something that's colour is more linked with emotional. We can also see things like absolute truth and causation. So, unlike any other ad I've ever seen, it says if you do something, something will happen, right? You say for it and you will be happy, right? I'm not sure any other ads will have something like that, or if they do, they'll say, read the terms and conditions, may not apply to everyone. Right? So there is this idea of absolute truths there, ideal social orders. So if you break down the screen, you can see things like men being in a power position over women, they're being higher up in the screen versus the women. You can also see that the woman is in a power position over the child, so it's showing hierarchical power structures there. And again, it's, all those relationships that are heteronormative. So emergency, we can ignore that, don't want to miss out on this. That kind of shows those ideal social orders and power structures, only heteronormative relationships. We're talking about linear progress to some extent, but the actual way the camera works progresses usually from left to right, so implying progress towards some unknown kind of destination, but it will kind of reach there, so it's a very dynamic ad. And just that idea of going back to new cars and new appliances reinforces that linear progress and things that will get better. As a side note, you can also kind of read the first kind of 5-6 pictures right here in a symbolic and a sexual way. So the idea of plane lifting off, boat cutting through seas, tall chimneys, sparks flying, even the fact that the production line kind of looks like ovaries, and eventually then it births Australia as a nation, which soon transitions into that shot of the mother and child. So that's kind of an interesting little part, but you can also see how technology and progress kind of father or mother a modern nation. All right, so postmodernism is a response to our increased awareness of great diversity in all human cultures, a diversity that calls into question the possibility of a universal privileged perspective. I have to rush through this to show you, so just go through this. This might be a bit quiet.
Which bank handles most of Australia's top 100 companies?
The Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank lets you do your banking automatically?
The Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank has the highest credit rating in the world?
The Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank is electronically linked to this supermarket? Commonwealth Bank.
南半球で一番進んだ外為取引持ってんのどこの銀行だろうね。
The Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank has the term deposit with the interest rate that accelerates?
The Commonwealth Bank. Which bank's good for a personal loan right now?
The Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank's MasterCard gives up to 55 days interest free?
The Commonwealth Bank.
What do you have in mind? A boat? Pool? Holiday?
New car.
Which bank lends more for housing than any other bank?
The Commonwealth Bank.
Which is the only national bank that's 100% Australian-owned?
The Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank? The Commonwealth Bank, Australia's leading bank.
Alrighty, so some of those stereotypes are deeply offensive, but it does kind of show a postmodern acceptance of diversity, even though it's totally aged. You can also see in terms of feeling and emotion, it's a lot more fun and playful compared to the other one, which is very serious. It is all about instant gratification, so who does it based on a need and they need it now. It also shows egalitarian, everyone is shown on the same eye level. And there is diversity and difference, even though it is very backwards. So we'll go to Metamodernism, and if simplistically put, the modern outlook vis-a-vis idealism, and idealism could be characterized as fanatic and/or naive. The postmodern mindset is apathetic and skeptic. The current generation's attitude, for it is, and very much so on an attitude tied to a generation, can be conceived as a kind of informed naivety or pragmatic idealism. And this we can see in this last. So just going through that last one, we'll have to be very quick, but structurally there is some vignettes, but it kind of ties it all together at the end, saying they're asking it for all of us. So there is an idea of fragmentation and unity there. They're engaging in it in a very kind of sincere way compared to the represented and diversity question of the last ad. So there is this kind of in-betweenness between pessimism and hope, because if they were just asking those questions, the likelihood is you'd feel very bleak by the end of that ad, whereas they're saying, together we can do it, and they're trying to reclaim legitimacy after the GFC, win back trust, and they're doing that through, I mean, it doesn't have to be called metamodernism, but they seem to have found a way to tap into people's emotions by oscillating between positive and negative emotions with that. Empathy and apathy is in there as well, but I'm running out of time, so I'll have to finish it there. So thank you all for listening.